Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 15, Episode 1. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us here this Wednesday evening / night, maybe Thursday morning. Steelers Nation, new season, Season 15, but same old Dave and Alex. Dave, it was day 0 of the Pittsburgh Steelers training camp, the report day to Latrobe and Saint Vincent College. Everyone accounted for and there, so football is officially back.
Happy end of the off season to you and to everybody. And obviously this is coming out a little later than what we imagined it would be. Mike Tomlin, well, I don't know, what, about two hours later, 2.5 hours later than what, or 3? I don't even know when we were even expecting the first time to speak.
A little after 4, I think, was the expectation.
And I think that got pushed back to what, a little after 6 or something like that, Eastern time. So anyway, it is what it is. And now it's made for a long day, but we have quite a bit to talk about here on day 0.
We do. So where to even begin on this one? Probably start with, as we'll do for the daily camp recaps, which will start tomorrow when we go out there for the first practice to see the team at 10:30 a.m. It'll be different for the morning time. First time that's happened, essentially, at least planned and scheduled. So some housekeeping, some injury-related type stuff. Pittsburgh having 3 players that will begin on injured lists and presumably will not practice for the first day tomorrow. 2 of them will start on active PUP. That is linebacker Cole Holcomb, defensive end Dean Lowry, and 1 on NFI, the non-football injury list. That is Cordarrelle Patterson. Mike Tomlin saying that he suffered a hamstring injury while training down south. He was calling Patterson day to day, but no real timetable on all 3 of those guys. So Dave, you called it. I wasn't sure if Holcomb would start on PUP or not, but he will with that knee injury last year, and we'll see where things go from there.
Yeah, that made sense, and shame on us for not rewinding back in our head. And we even talked about it when in the 90 and 30 on when we got to Dean Lowry. You know, he was coming off of that pectoral injury last season. So, but I guess to some degree he was probably out there during OTAs and mandatory minicamp. Obviously, not there to see the level of participation and all like that. So maybe he's got a little bit. Mike Tomlin called them pre-existing injuries with both those guys, and obviously, you know, had Dean Lowry hurt himself during the offseason on his own, he would have been on the NFI. So I'm half speculating here, but I would tend to think that it might be related to Lowry and that pectoral injury that he suffered late last season, and just the final steps to the rehab on that. The Cole Holcomb one we've beat to death, kind of speculating back and forth whether or not he'd be on active PUP. That obviously makes sense, and as we also said, you never know what kind of surprise you're going to get. And Cordarrelle Patterson with that hamstring, as Mike Tomlin said, training down south, he will start there. He was asked. I think Jerry Dulac asked him, "Is there optimism or hope that those 3 guys on those lists will get on the moving train during camp?" I think was the way the question was formed to him, and he in so many words said, yeah, he expects that to happen. So we talking, you know, 2 days for, you call Cordarrelle Patterson day to day. So we've heard that song before, haven't we?
Especially with hamstring injuries, right, which can linger.
Right, especially over the age of 30 as well, too. So. Look, they're not practicing. I'm going to sum it up for you, Alex. They're not going to practice until they practice.
It's a bold take, but I like it.
Okay.
Yeah, and all of them can be activated at any time. All still count against the 91-man roster, so it doesn't open a spot for them to sign anyone. We'll see. We'll get eyes on those guys. I mean, obviously, you know, Holcomb was walking around fine. I assume Lowry the same. We'll see Patterson's posture overall, but it's probably fair to say day-to-day on all those guys. Holcomb probably being the most serious situation, but there really, again, is no timetable for when they're expected to come off their respective lists.
And just to clarify for listeners real quick, if you're not on either one of these two lists at the start of training camp, in other words, if someone goes out the first day of camp now and pulls a hamstring or something like that, they cannot be put on either one of these lists. Once a player begins practicing in training camp, they are no longer eligible for, PUP or, non-football injury, obviously, but no longer eligible. So now we just sit and wait and see when those guys come off and begin practicing there. But could be worse. A year ago, obviously, I don't think anybody on either one of those two lists. And I think it's pretty common around the league if you look to see, two to three players probably per team end up on average on these lists. So that's what it is.
Yeah, some teams have more. I think the Browns have 7. Some teams have less overall. And just as a quick, very nerdy technical point, you kind of alluded to it. The reason why Patterson is not on PUP is because the injury occurred away from team facilities. If you get hurt at practice or in the weight room or obviously in a game, the way that Holcomb and Lowry were injured in game last year, that's eligible for PUP if you're working out by yourself, own facility, whatever the case is. Then you go on NFI because it didn't happen under the team's watch. So that's the difference between PUP and NFI.
Who's the last one to come off these lists? If you're to bet.
I mean, it's take your pick. I mean, my first thought is Holcomb because of the seriousness of the knee injury, but those hamstring injuries, I mean, I don't know when it occurred, but I've seen hamstring injuries take 3-4 weeks for guys to fully get back from, especially, as you said, 33-year-old Patterson, who admitted back in the spring he was not in great shape overall. He was a 2 out of 10 was his score on his level of football preparedness. So I'll still say Holcomb, but I mean, you got a couple of guys that are on the older side in Lowry and Patterson, and Holcomb with a serious knee injury. So it really could be anybody.
Yeah, I'll go Holcomb as well.
All right, Dave, pivoting now to the quarterback position. No change there. Mike Tomlin asked if Russell Wilson is still in pole position. Tomlin said, essentially said that he is, said there has been no change there, and was asked how he will manage the reps with Justin Fields and Russell Wilson. And Tomlin said very carefully, which I'm not entirely sure how to interpret, but we'll, of course, be watching and charting and talking about it daily.
Yeah, I think he was just being extra careful there, and it's not going to amount to a hill of beans. He's still going to be asked questions about it, especially if you go out one day and Justin Fields gets 50.002% of the snaps versus Russell Wilson in the whatever, he's still going to be asked about it. But I think he was smiling when he answered that question. Just I'm not going to read anything into it until we have more to kind of read into it. I just think he was just being careful and parsing his words. He did say that the pole position thing has not changed. I mean, there very well could be practices where they want to get a longer look. The whole we said this the other day. The whole quarterback room is new. You got a lot to learn about these guys. So there might be some days where Justin Fields takes them, like you said. There might be a day where they kind of say, Russell, look, we know you want to be out there. We want you to rest at least a little bit here, take a couple extra reps off, and maybe Justin Fields ends up getting the majority of the reps that day. So people are going to speculate about it. We'll speculate about it, I'm sure, as it comes up. But until we have a real reason to read more into it, I mean, we just sit and watch and count the reps, I guess.
Sure. I really made the analogy to 2022 with Trubisky and rookie Pickett and Mason Rudolph. And even then, although it was clear that Trubisky was the starter wire to wire, there were days where he got a half day, quarter day, days where he didn't do a 2-minute drill and the second and third team did. So they're going to mix and match this thing. It's not going to be necessarily the most exact every single day, the same amount of reps overall. As a starting point, the way that the team sessions, the 11-on-11 work is you get 3 or 4, probably tomorrow, Thursday, a later day. Basically, we'll call it, you get 12 practice or 12 plays per team session, and usually get between 3 to 5 overall 11-on-11 sessions periods throughout practice. And the way that it generally goes is first team gets the first 4, second team gets the next 4, third team gets the final 4. So that's the kind of the baseline to look at. You would anticipate Wilson getting the first 4, Fields the second 4, and then Kyle Allen, the third string quarterback, the final 4. So they're split up evenly in that sense. But again, there's going to be some ebbs and flows. We'll chart it. We'll talk about it. But I think you're probably right to say, Dave, don't overreact one day on day 8 of camp where Wilson gets, the first 2 periods and then he sits and Fields gets some first team reps to close out the day in practice.
Are we to the final preseason game yet?
Not yet.
Almost?
Almost. I do want to say that I wrote this this morning because I wanted to make this point. We've mentioned it before, but I think Fields will have an impressive showing, an impressive preseason and training camp performance because with his physical talent, the arm, the legs, running probably primarily with the backups, the second stringers facing a second string defense, probably going to be a guy that looks good. A starter last year with first round talent against backups and journeymen and rookies, all that kind of stuff. So I think he'll have a good summer. I hope he does, obviously. That's going to create some natural buzz about quarterback competition. I would pay no mind to that, but I think that's how this arc is going to go.
Are we going to have some contested 7-on-7 scramble touchdowns more than usual that you score one way and the media scores the other way? And
oh God! I didn't even think about that.
I did. If Russell Wilson, Justin Fields takes off with a couple of them in 7-on-7, they're going to be some split scores. I have a feeling with.
You mean 7 shots?
7 shots, yeah.
Yeah. For anyone, somehow it's controversial. I don't know how it's still controversial, but the way that I personally score the 7 shots, which everyone loves, who won, offense, defense. If the quarterback rushes for a touchdown, that is a win to the defense. The quarterback cannot be touched. In theory, Wilson and Fields could just run the ball over the goal line on all 7 plays because they cannot be touched. If the defense in that kind of setting is forcing the quarterback to scramble, that is a win overall for the D. So just a heads up on that. People will yell at me. I'm not changing. I'm stubborn, keeping it the way I'm keeping it.
All right, shake that fist at the cloud, old man.
Yes, I absolutely will. All right, Dave, what else Mike Tomlin have to say at his opening training camp press conference? Talked about the Cams, Cam Hayward and Cam Sutton. Really, talked about Hayward managing his reps and just said flatly that guys like Benton and younger defensive linemen need more reps than Cam Hayward does at this point. But one guy who will not see a reduction in reps is Cam Sutton, despite the looming 8-game suspension to start the season. Tomlin said that has no bearing on the amount of work Sutton will receive in training camp.
Right. And he mentioned something to the fact of Cameron Hayward has over 10,000 snaps and all like that. He didn't chalk it up to cleanup surgery or anything like that. Just the fact that, that this is the time that they normally kind of, in so many words, take it easy on him. And as you said, let the younger guys get the reps. And I'm fine with that. So no surprise there. And as we mentioned a moment that Cam Sutton was suspended, that it should not impact, at least as him being able to participate in camp and preseason game. It's just a matter of how much, I guess. And, is he going to be out there with the first teamers, for X amount of snaps, even though he's going to miss the first 8 games and all like that. So that's the part of Cam Sutton we'll be monitoring moving forward here.
If you had to guess who takes slot corner reps on that first practice Thursday, I'm going to call it tomorrow. I don't know when people listen to this, but Thursday's practice. Who just not even worried about teams, first team, second team, just who takes slot reps on Thursday?
I don't know. I'll just flip a coin and guess Josiah Scott.
Anybody else? I'm saying first, second, third string, just overall, who do you think gets the look? I mean, Sutton, you think would, Scott would, Bishop. I don't know if they're all going to get reps tomorrow because there's only so many reps to go around.
Yeah, those 3 at a minimum. I mean, and obviously, as we've talked, they could mix and match some safeties in there and whatnot. And I mean, your report's going to be full of probably people getting time in that slot.
Yeah, for sure. Again, day 1, last year, day 1, Duke Dawson ran with the ones. They rotated every single day before Dawson got injured. So I would expect rotation. I would expect Sutton to get the first slot corner snap, but there'll be others, and obviously they got to figure out who's replacing Sutton the first half of the season, assuming that Sutton is planning on having that role when he returns.
Okay.
What else from Mike Tomlin? Dave, I'm just kind of going through some of the things we've written about so far. Not concerned about Hard Knocks. That's so far down the road in Tomlin's mind that he's not even really thinking about that. Hasn't had discussions with NFL Films or HBO about any of the logistics regarding that. So I'm sure he's not thrilled, but he's saying he's also not concerned.
Yeah, and it is. My main takeaway there is him putting an onus on the other three teams in the division having to go through the same thing. So at least it's a level playing field in that regard there. So that was my big takeaway from his answer on Hard Knocks.
Mike Tomlin asked about the joint practice the team has scheduled with the Buffalo Bills. That'll take place August 15th, one day after camp breaks at Acrisure Stadium. That is closed to the public, so we will not be in attendance for that. But he said one of the main reasons of why they wanted to do a joint practice this year was for special teams. And so that's going to be the kickoff rule, the changes there. Maybe get some additional work in before one of their preseason games to try to maximize the amount of reps with this newness of how kick returns and coverage will look and work.
Yeah, that makes sense there. And he was also asked again about the several earlier practices this year, which is new in training camp. And he says, we were just really pressed for time after practices in terms of our night meetings. And oftentimes we were making corrections and coaching points in the following morning. And it's just better for teaching and learning when you get that immediate feedback. And so we just bought ourselves more time on the backside of our day so that we could have more immediate feedback, teaching and learning based on the tape that we put out that day. He says it's just some challenges to the 11-hour workday in a setting like this, he said. And so we moved the practices back, meaning forward, I guess, a little bit in an effort for that. But also oftentimes guys are rushed at dinner, and we want to make sure we do a good job of feeding the guys and that they're bringing an appropriate appetite to dinner. So those are a couple of byproducts and reasons why we're moving the practice to earlier in the day.
Only Tomlin can describe eating dinner as appropriate appetite. Just makes me laugh, the Tomlinism there. So yeah,
I can listen to Mike Tomlin and read the phone book. Do they make? I don't know if they even make phone books anymore, but old phone books I could listen to them read.
For our younger audience, a phone book used to be a paper copy of all the phone numbers of people and businesses, and doesn't exist anymore. No one even answers their phone, but that is what a phone book is.
And you've never used a rotary phone in your life, have you?
I've seen them like in museums and stuff. So does that count? I heard dialing 0 was a pain with the old rotary phones. Is that true?
Oh boy. So, but I tell you what, I do remember at my grandparents' house is they had one of those old party line systems. So where sometimes you'd go to pick up the phone to make a call and somebody else would be on there talking. That's not even in your house. It's kind of a party line system there. But anyway, all right. What else did Mike Tomlin have to say?
To go back to special,
Mike Tomlin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to go back to special teams, just asked about Tyler Medikevich being signed, and I'm guessing the Holcomb situation played a factor in that. But Tomlin cited just the known special teams commodity that is Medikevich, and those guys are useful. Pittsburgh, of course, really values having some dedicated specialists. Their offseason has really been revolved around adding some of those guys, be it Cameron Johnston, adding Medikevich, et cetera, Cordarrelle Patterson, of course, in the return game. So that seems to be the catalyst for why Medikevich was brought back in.
Yeah, and he was asked if this kickoff rule can somehow wind up maybe altering the roster to some degree. And I wouldn't expect it to be severely altered. If you did alter it, it would probably be one extra bigger body type, right? Like an inside linebacker, like a tight end, like what else? Maybe a defensive lineman along those lines. So it's hard to speculate exactly what he means, but he did go on to kind of say, we're kind of in so many words, he said, we're looking for that kind of next Tyler Medikevich to show himself in the preseason as well, too. In other words, that, and not necessarily position, but a guy that stands out on special teams, a Medikevich-like type player.
Right, a core special teamer, four-face kind of a guy. I think, Dave, most NFL teams, even going to camp where there is a level of unknown, they basically know what to expect. They know the roster. They have a good idea who's going to make it, who doesn't. Always surprises, injuries can change things, trades, all that kind of stuff. But they have a good level of confidence in what they're dealing with. I think with the kickoffs, there really is a big unknown for everyone. They just don't know how these things are going to work. Big impact, small impact. How will teams use it? What's the best approach in terms of style and scheme and body types to put out there? No one really knows how this thing's going to go. So I think Tomlin's being truthful when he says, we just kind of don't know how these things are going to go. Let's load up on having good, capable special teamers in case we really need to have those guys and go from there.
Mike Tomlin seems to, really still view going away for training camp as a somewhat advantage to his team. And obviously not a lot of teams around the NFL do that anymore these days.
Very few. More and more teams are staying home and they don't go away. Or if they do go away, I think Dallas goes to California. So they're just in a whole different part of the country for Pittsburgh to drive an hour away and to have that camp feel. I think it's really special. I know maybe I'm sounding a little too sentimental or Homer-like to praise it as much as I do. And obviously I get the benefit by going to camp. And so I very much hope they stay at St. Vincent for the next 50 years. But the nostalgia and just when you go down there to Chuck Noll Field and realize this was the same place where the 70s Steelers practiced, where Joe Green lifted weights after practice, where Chuck Noll walked, where all the Steelers legends took part in, and dynasties were born in Saint Vincent College and in Latrobe, PA, which is the birthplace of professional football. When you go back into the history about Pudge Heffelfinger and Sport Donnelly and all those kinds of things. There's a lot of history there that I appreciate. So I think it's really cool. It's really old school. And I'm glad that Tomlin enjoys it as much as and I think we all enjoy this team being at Latrobe.
Yeah, I agree. He was also asked about what he's learned about Russell Wilson, since signing him and being around him for the last few months. He says he likes to work. I just think that that is a really good place to begin. He's highly conditioned. He brings a unique approach to the weight room, maybe for a guy that plays his position. There's a lot of interesting things about him in terms of his appetite for work that's really attractive. So, as you would expect, some positive words on Russell Wilson from Mike Tomlin.
Yeah, I know Wilson has sent a lot of videos and Instagram posts of him in the weight room and boxing and all the different things he does to stay in shape and kind of prepare his body. So I think it's a different kind of approach, as Mike Tomlin said. I love Tomlin's answer on Keanu Benton and what to expect out of him. The question could barely be asked before Tomlin said, expecting big things from Benton in year number 2.
Yeah, and that's a guy that when we're going through him again in the 90 and 30, you really expect him to take that next step forward for him. Man, I think you could see 5-6 sacks out of Keanu Benton. Boy, that club and swim of his that we saw last year, he's got a full normal off season under his belt, not rushing through all that college dog and pony stuff, those kind of things, as part of the draft process. And I mean, I'm with Mike Tomlin. Big things, man. Big things.
They need it. I think they'll get it. I'm really excited for a lot of these second-year guys, whether it's him, Herbig, Joey Porter Jr. We'll see what Darnell Washington can do. I don't know if I'm expecting the same level of high-level plays I am Porter, Benton, Herbig, but I think Washington will be in a much better place in his second year and hopefully more involved in the pass game.
All right, I think we're about 20 minutes in, and I think we beat up this Mike Tomlin presser pretty good.
He speaks, Dave. Talk about Najee Harris meeting with the media. At first, we didn't think he would talk because he seemed to avoid the media scrum when he reported the training camp, but he did come out, Harris did, and speak to the media and give some, I think, thoughtful answers and honest answers overall. The big question, of course, is his reaction to the team declining his fifth-year option, why that was, Najee's reaction to that. Harris admitted he was initially disappointed by the decision, by the decline, I should say, of his fifth-year option. But he, moved past it and he's focused on having a really good season. He says he was told by the team that the reason why it was declined was because the offense is unknown. They don't know how things are going to look and they want to see things play out, which matches the reporting that came out back in early May when the team declined his option. So what is your reaction to Najee's reaction?
First and foremost, when the video surfaced of him cutting through the, I don't know, flower bed or what, just not a traditional path into the dorm or whatnot, looked like he was purposefully avoiding the scrum and all like that. I was thinking to myself, ain't no way that guy's going to talk today. Mm-hmm. I will say this, I take my hat off and hand it to him for going out there and talking to the media. I bet that was something that he was not looking forward to. I wondered if he'd do it at all. I wondered how he would act, what his kind of his demeanor would be if he did. I was impressed just that he decided to go out there and do that and get it over with. Now he doesn't have to worry about that for at least a couple of days. And then I thought I thought his answers weren't just 2-word answers either, and he could have very easily gotten away with that and seemed very disinterested. And I'm just here so I don't get fined.
Right.
There. So I give him an A+ just on all that. And I thought his answers were honest. Was obviously, how can you not be disappointing in learning that your 5th-year option was not picked up? And then, I think along the lines he was asked, if, he admitted that there's little that he can do to change how the decision makers across the NFL feel about the running back position. He said, I wouldn't say devalued. He said they're only devalued when it comes time to pay. Ooh, shots fired.
For sure.
They're not devalued, though, if you look around. There are games where I literally carry the offense. Now, I'm sure that won't be twisted all around.
It already has. I've seen some places do that.
No.
Never.
There are games where I literally carry the offense. I suppose in that, if all you got presented with that quote, yeah, that could be taken wrong. It's not really devalued, he says, but when it comes time to pay, that's when they want to devalue the position. And what did he go on to say? Right now we're not in the best position because he's talking about the running backs in the market and all, we're not in the best position because if they tell us to carry the ball this number of times, you can't say no. It won't look good on you. They don't really have any leverage right now as a running back. There's nothing really you can do. He went on to add, he likes being in Pittsburgh. He likes Coach Tomlin. He likes Art Rooney. He likes Omar Khan. It's a good city. The people are nice and welcoming, but it's a business. I've always been in the driver's seat of this, and wherever God stops the car is where I'm working, whether it's here or somewhere else. So, and then, it didn't sound like he's got any contract talks going on, according to him, at least at the time as well. So probably not a huge shock to the masses. As is usually the case, I don't think we learned anything earth-shattering here, but I will reemphasize that I think it was smart of him to come out and do this right out of the chute, and I respect the kind of forthcoming answers that he gave as well. So from here, I wouldn't expect him to talk to the media for the next handful of days, to be honest with you. I mean, what's going to really change in the next couple of days? Mm-hmm. And then, from there, there's 45 days until they play Atlanta, right?
Right. And
I guess the only question is he out there? Does he hold in or does he practice? And, I didn't get any sense in what of the audio video that's been released so far. I did not get any sense that he's planning on not doing anything. However, like I said, if I were him, my hamstring would get real tight carrying in that bag into Saint Vincent College.
He'd be like Brandon Ayuk, who has back and neck soreness. Can you believe it, Dave? Broke up a little wrong there. Yeah.
Who knew?
I mean, obviously, if this team's not going to extend Najee, if there's no talks there, then what are you holding in to? There's nothing really to gain from it. Now,
you're holding in to not get injured, so at least you can guarantee that you're going to start the regular season, at least with a fighter's chance of no foot injury, no whatever. That would be the only motivation, even if you know that you're not getting a contract. That would be the only motivation to hold in.
But at that logical end, you'd have to skip the entire training camp, all the preseason. I mean, obviously, if you wait, then you reduce the odds of getting hurt.
My hamstring hurts, Alex.
But are you going to do that the entire time? Then do you risk, being rusty yourself in a contract year? I mean, I get both sides of it. Sure. I think what'll happen is Harris will practice in a normal capacity but he's not going to do a ton, which is what happened last year, where they were careful with him, didn't get tackled much. He'd go through individual, he'd go through 7 shots in the live contact run period, which won't begin until next Tuesday. He really never participated, rarely, if ever. I think he got tackled like once in a goal line drill last year. So that's probably how they'll approach it. It's probably the best thing for both sides. I echo your sentiments. I give Najee props for talking, for being candid. I've said it before, I'll say it again. This is a man that's likely playing his last year in Pittsburgh, likely playing somewhere else in 2025. And his incentive now is to have a really good season in Pittsburgh to maximize his value in his contract come next March.
Alex, we all know how I think about the running back position as being a non-fungible one, right?
Of course. Although we've had some interesting discussions lately, I think, in paying Najee or not.
And obviously I do think that the running back position is fungible. But man, I feel for the guy.
They should have picked up his option. I mean, just even emotionally, just like the facts and figures, like picking up the option for a cheap contract next year would have been the best thing for the team.
And if you would have asked me at the end of last season, I wouldn't have believed that I'd been in his position now. But this guy is set to earn $2.39 million in 2024 and doesn't even have at least a carrot dangling out over him of a 5th-year option, like you just said there. That's it feels wrong. I mean, I more than anybody understand the business side of it and the running back and the market and all like that. But and look, maybe they have an offer on the table, or maybe they are going to put an offer on the table for him. But and maybe it's not going to be something that he wants to sign. And I've already laid out what I thought a fair contract would be for him. And obviously said contract would not include any guaranteed money past 2024. But here's the thing too. They hold all, and he, in so many words, I think he said it, the Steelers hold all the leverage with him, because now, even with him not having the 5th-year option picked up, they could still. Najee says, "I'm gonna whatever. I'm over it. I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna show the world that that none of this is bothering me. I'm gonna go out there. I'm gonna rush for 1,500 yards I'm going to get 1,500 total yards from scrimmage. I'm gonna have 14 touchdowns and all like that. And man, I'm gonna make everybody know that I am worthy." And you know what the Steelers can just turn around and do?
The franchise tag.
The franchise tag, which right now I think is projected to be a little over 13 million at this point. So they hold the leverage in a negotiation fact too, that he's scheduled to earn 2.4 million this year. Let's call it 13.1 franchise tag. That means they essentially know that on a high side, they have his earnings potentially capped at what's that, 15.5 million.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the contract that I laid out would technically pay him a little over 16 million over the 2024 and 2025. They're not going to go much higher than that. Now, if they laid out something like that to him, like the contract that I laid out, and he turned it down, well, then to me, that's on him, because they've got him by the short and curlies, and he knows as much.
Yeah, he really has no leverage right now. All he can do, like I said, is play. There really is no alternative. I get the threat of the franchise tag. It would still be insane for Pittsburgh to use it after declining his option and paying him double what they could have paid him had they picked up the option. But if he has an incredible season, then it's always on the table, potentially. I mean, I get that. I assume no offer is going to come. I think if they did offer something, it'd be a limbo contract. How low can you go? And I don't think they're going to want to just piss off and insult Najee Harris. So, I mean, you play the season out. Maybe he has this incredible season. You revisit things after the year. That's always a possibility. Along with the franchise tag, you still could extend him in March and February. That's not an impossibility. But I think he's playing somewhere else next year.
But like I said, and look, I'm not advocating using the franchise tag on him. I think you know that. But there's something about having that franchise tag sword in that nice glass case that has all the lights pointing down on it.
You've thought about this some.
It's there, if you need it. So it's at the very least, it's a threat. It's leverage, it's negotiation tactic and all like that. But once again, there's no reason to think at this point in time that he will sign a contract. However, if he does, I would think it would be somewhere around that example that I threw out that we talked about for a couple weeks there.
When you hear Najee give the explanation of what the team has told him, that they didn't pick up his option because they want to see how the offense looks and there's uncertainty there, do you buy that? Because I don't.
Oh, shit.
I see what you did there. Bless you.
Bless
I say that from a confession standpoint and a sneezing standpoint.
Yeah. I'm not buying it. Tell the people why. Like they'd have a hard time figuring out why you feel that way.
Yeah, I think most people understand. I mean, when you hire Arthur Smith, probably the most run-oriented offensive coordinator in football, when you're a team building around the run, you've said that, you build up your offensive line. If you're that unsure about how your starting running back's going to work in this offense, you made a bad hire to begin with. I know
you made a bad draft pick to start with, too.
Yeah. Now, I know you can never know anything, with certainty, but you're making projections and best guesses, and Pittsburgh's best guesses, they're going to run the ball effectively this year. Najee Harris will have a nice season. Could this mean, as I've seen some speculation, that Jaylen Warren's going to overtake Harris, that Smith's going to like Warren's explosiveness and big playability more, and that's kind of how the offense looks means, not about the certainty about the run game, but who's leading the run game? It might be Warren over Harris.
Yeah, we'll see. I still think Najee's going to get a predominant amount, unless he's being a butt and not performing well or injured or what have you. I still expect him to have the lion's share when the dust clears at the end of the season.
Yeah, I think technically Harris will have the carry lead. I think it'll be a very similar committee. There'll be ebbs and flows where 1 week Harris maybe gets more and 1 week Warren gets more, depending on game plan and hot hand and those types of things. But I think the splits will be similar. So I kind of get the thought, but I think in practice it's going to be a pretty similar split to last year.
Knowing what you know after Najee speaking and where we're at with that first practice and practice happening on Thursday, would you bet your house that Najee, does not get a contract extension before week 1?
I bet my house. Bet your house. I'll give that answer.
Yeah,
it's like a bet your car. I'll bet my car, not my Porsche.
How confident are you? Because a lot of people are now saying there's and have been saying there's no way Najee signs an extension this offseason.
It's like under 5%, and that's probably even being generous. I don't like, 0 is a tricky thing to lock yourself into, right, but the chances to me are very, very low for this year. Now, again, maybe off season, maybe, but even then, I still think he's somewhere else next year.
I still think there's a level of plausibility, maybe, and a percentage higher than what you have on it,
Before week 1.
Before week 1.
Okay. All right. We will see. Anything else from Najee? Good interview. Good to hear from him. It's been a while. So hopefully he's in good spirits. That's probably, again, I said it when they declined his option. That's honestly the best thing for him, because it will get him that contract, that long-term deal 1 year sooner. And he's going to be a one contract in terms of a multi-year deal, free agent kind of thing. That's a one-time thing. He's going to be 27, 28 next year. A lot of carry. He's going to be 30 by the time the contract's over with, 31. You're not going to get a second bite at that apple. So the sooner you can do it, the better.
And I'll just end it with our conversation on him where I started it. Good on him for biting his lip and getting out there and getting this out of the way.
Let's talk more running backs here, Dave. It's training camp because we're talking pony backfield. Jaylen Warren, it was a very brief comment, but he was asked, is basically a pony grouping with Harris and Warren on the field at the same time. Is that in the cards? And Warren said, yeah, it is. It is a possibility. So we saw a ton of pony in camp last year with Ant-Mac, with Anthony McFarland. That did not materialize in the season, of course, but I'm sure we'll see it in camp. I'm sure we'll talk about it. Will it actually translate? I don't I don't know for sure, but if there's a year for it to happen, it's this year. Without a bunch of established receivers and a run-heavy offense, and you got two talented guys in Warren and Harris, I think we'll see some of it.
Yeah, but have it in there recordings of us somewhere saying that if ever there was a year.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this actually, what I just said was a recording from 2019. I've just recorded that and played that back.
We're AI-ing it together. Look, I definitely think they should explore it. I really do. I really do. I think they got two backs to do it with too. And now we'll just, I mean, we talk about it every off season, but until we see it more than just a few times in a season, it's the same old.
28 snaps last year of a pony backfield with Harris and Warren in 2023. Dave, over under 30.5 pony snaps in 2024.
I got to take the under just because historical and betting trends and yada, yada.
I'll take the over. Maybe not significantly, but I will take the over on 30.5.
You were right.
Yeah, I think it can be a weapon, but we'll see. We'll see it in camp. I know we're going to see it in camp. I know we're going to talk about it one day where I come back from camp and say, Dave, man, they ran like 10 plays a pony and Warren split out and he made this catch. But will it matter come September? That's the key.
Show me the baby.
Don't talk about the labor pains. That's what you say. What else? Let's talk about Russell Wilson. He had a lengthy meeting with the media. He carried his playbook as he reported to training camp today. So he's ready to go. Talked up everybody that could be talked up. He loves his playmakers, spoke highly of Calvin Austin, but also was impressed by the tight end room, talked up Connor Hayward, Darnell Washington, Pat Frymuth. So it all sounds good, as you would expect. Wilson, a veteran, knows all the right things to say. So that's all fine and well. What was your impression of his first camp meeting with the media? I
mean, obviously I wasn't, swayed anymore or whatnot. I will say what I've said, for several weeks now when it comes to him. I don't know how the 2024 season is going to play out for him, but the moment that he signed with the Steelers up until this point, he has done everything you can ask for, in team settings, outside of team settings, social media, what have you. He is acting like he's been in Pittsburgh for a couple seasons now. Everything that comes out of his mouth, as rehearsed as it may or may not be, it's just rolling off his tongue. I don't know that you can ask for any more out of Russell Wilson prior to him hitting the field in practices and games than you have gotten out of him up until this point.
I agree. And also, although it's not been cemented and Mike Tomlin is not declaring it, Wilson is the starter. When your quarterback has the entire Western PA media around you speaking for 20 minutes and Justin Fields, this is not shade, but Justin Fields did not speak today. That's what the backup does. The starting quarterback is out there with the whole throng of reporters answering about the team, the season. So I know at this point, locally, those listening all understand this is not a competition. Nationally, it's still going to be discussed as a competition, and that just kind of pay no mind to that. But just for further verification that something dramatic would have to happen for Russell Wilson to not take the first snap in week one against Atlanta. Basically, it's going to have to be injury. Even if he tanks this summer, I don't think he's going to be benched for week one.
Not that Justin Fields has done anything wrong when the microphone has been put in his face up until this point. But if you're scoring it just in an off-season perspective, Russell Wilson has won the off-season.
Yeah, you call him the mayor of Pittsburgh, which I think is an apt term. And Fields has done well. And I just said earlier, I think he'll have a really good preseason. I think he'll look good. I think that's going to create some of the further buzz about the, I'm using air quotes here, controversy. I don't think that actually exists, but Wilson is going to be your starter. How long that goes for, who the heck knows? But he's going to start week one.
You go out there and you throw 3 interceptions in the first game and no touchdowns and an interception, then, obviously you don't win games, this portion of the year. But, just really impressed with how he's handled himself in all situations, and he did not look stumped at all. Today, everything just rolled right off of his tongue. He tried to mention as many teammates as I think that he possibly could, so that it doesn't come back that, well, he must hate so-and-so or whatnot. And yeah, I don't know. Did he say anything super relevant that was quotable though? That we learned anything?
Let me ask you this. Are you buying the buzz on Calvin Austin? Wilson did say, as he praised a bunch of guys, but he said Calvin's had an amazing offseason, praised his speed, getting in and out of his breaks, his quickness, and Austin has gotten a lot of buzz this spring from Wilson, from Zach Azzani, the receivers coach. Are you buying that? Do you think at least Austin has the leg up, for whatever it's worth, entering training camp?
All I will say is he's probably where he should most definitely be at this point, for a player that missed his rookie season and how much we talked about his skill set coming out of Memphis and all. I would hope he is what Russell Wilson is describing him at this point in his young NFL career.
I'm going to start a game show called Let Me Ask You This. Dave, okay. Let me ask you this. I know it's not going to mean much for day one, but we're taking things day by day. When Pittsburgh comes out with their first 11-on-11 play in practice tomorrow, Pickens will be one wide receiver. Who's going to be, let's assume they're in multi-tight end personnel under Arthur Smith. Who's going to be the other receiver opposite George Pickens?
What's the play call? But
anything. I don't know. Just to run up the middle. Just the two receiver set. The first pairing will be Pickens and who.
If he has a great camp and does everything that you ask of him, you roll him out there for that rep at a minimum.
Okay. Yes. I think it'll be Austin as well. Could it be somebody else? Could it be Van Jefferson? Sure. It's not going to matter much who's out there to begin with, obviously. But just day one for me is kind of getting a baseline of just who's running where. Again, they will mix and match and things will change. But just as that initial talking point, because I know whoever's out there, I'll be tweeting about it. Everyone will be tweeting about it. People will overreact to it. The system works, but just to see where things start. Austin had a bad first day of camp last year, so he picked things up, had a better camp the rest of the way. Hopefully gets off to a better start on day one in 2024.
Look, am I still to the point where I would, take the over on, let's say, 42 and a half receptions or whatever you want to, assuming the line is somewhere around that. I think that's a little rich yet when it comes to how we're expecting this offense to be. But let's here's a question that I phrased to what Joe and Russ when you were off the other day. There was we obviously expect George Pickens to lead this team in receptions. We think that Pat Freiermuth will probably be, if he stays healthy, should be the second leading receiver or pass catcher on this team. Somewhere within there, obviously, your two running backs are going to load up on some receptions as well, too. But when it comes to the second true wide receiver in receptions on this team, I think Calvin Austin's in a driver's seat to be that guy, whatever that number ends up looking like.
Yeah, I mean, I think I went Van Jefferson.
I think a whole hell of a lot more than him than I do Van Jefferson. I'll tell you that. Prospects.
I just don't have a great feel for anyone, really. It's all to me, it's completely wide open, and I still think, and I'm on record and continue to be, they're going to add somebody. It's going to be some outsider that is going to become the true number two receiver. Maybe Alec Pierce. Cortland Sutton's looking less likely. He reported to camp he's practicing. Doesn't sound like he's going to make too much of a stink there out there in Denver as he looks for a new deal. But to me, it's wide open. You go into camp, may the best man win.
Yep. They got a lot of sorting out to do beyond that top three of Pickens, Austin, and Roman Wilson.
Right. Did you make anything of the comments about the tight end room from Russell Wilson? He called Connor Hayward a dark horse and great athlete, and one of those guys that was out there in San Diego earlier this month training with the Steelers quarterbacks and receivers. He called Darnell Washington a freak athlete and want to get him involved in the pass game this year. Just 7 receptions last year for Washington as a rookie. What's your thoughts there on the tight ends maybe getting more involved, specifically Hayward and Washington?
I mean, I'm here for it. And they'll have to do that if they don't go out and get that other big wide receiver piece there. But I mean, I think even whatever that looks like, increased usage of both Connor Hayward and Darnell Washington in the passing game is still going to be muted to some degree.
Yeah, I think so. I think Connor can have a more of a role in the pass game. Generally speaking, at least between the 20s, I think he'll be used more vertically this year than what he was last year, which was a lot of short check down, boot out in the flat type of stuff. He'll still get those targets and receptions, but I think he used a bit more like his rookie year where he was pushed downfield vertically more often. Washington, red zone's a natural place for him. Should get some involvement down there, I would think. But yeah, he's not going to be a big part of this passing game.
All right. Anything else Russell Wilson say that was semi-notable?
Did you know he played for the Yankees? He mention of that. His time he compared the Yankees to the Steelers.
Slid that one in there. Yeah.
It's an apt comparison, and in the way that he meant it was kind of the championship mentality. But Yankees and Steelers, in some sense, are like this historic franchise that have not found that success recently. I know there's differences in money spent, and people really hate the Yankees, all that kind of stuff. But I kind of took Yankees Steelers as a comparison in a slightly more negative way than the way Wilson was intending it.
I hear you.
All right. Any other players here, Dave? Again, a bunch of them spoke today. Landon Roberts, not a ton of crazy entrances, but he probably had the best entrance in overalls and a cowboy hat, the Texas roots shining through with a Landon Roberts.
I said this the other day when we went through the 90 and 30, just rubber stamp what he gave this team last year. And I tell you, I wouldn't cross that dude's path.
Yeah, that is a rocked up dude and physical and intense and super underrated, I think, overall. Anything else? I'm just trying to think about any players that said anything.
I'm trying to think what was kind of notable. What did Jalen? I mean, you already hit the main thing that kind of Jalen said, right? Who else?
Warren said there's going to be more motion for this offense, which could be true, but it's kind of funny because Canada's calling card, I should say, was like the motion, which was about average last year. So that's what he thinks the offense will bring. How about Trey Fautanu admitting it's kind of been a difficult switch to right tackle, which of course he was a college left tackle. So hopefully that transition goes relatively smoothly, but we'll be watching for that. And you may see a lot of TJ Watt as he tries to make that transition.
Yeah, that's a hell of iron to sharpen iron on. For sure, and he'll find out what it's like sooner rather than later here in training camp. So, and we've talked about the muscle memory and all like that, but I mean, it's just not completely a foreign position to him going back to high school and all like that. But there, I mean, if it comes out of his mouth and said, and he says, it might be a little bit of a transition, then you have to believe him, right?
Yeah, and nothing that can't be overcome. We saw Broderick Jones make that switch last year and hold his own. This is the time to get reps and make mistakes and learn and grow. And I think Fautanu is a really smart guy. So not saying it can't be overcome, but you do kind of look at Pittsburgh always shifting their offensive linemen around from what they played in college. I think it's hurt them in a lot of ways, and hopefully it doesn't continue, but we'll be watching for that. We'll see if he gets first team reps. He may get some second team reps to kind of start day one. But they're not going to be in pads anyway, so they're not going to do O-line, D-line, one-on-one type stuff until next Tuesday.
All right, where to from here? Because nothing's, at least in my head, the team video was like 58 minutes or something of like 7 players and all, and I haven't made it all the way through it. What about Watt?
He praised Patrick Queen and Peyton Wilson, like their speed and sideline-to-sideline ability. That was kind of the big thing that TJ Watt talked about.
Right. Okay, where to from here?
I was just going to say just quickly, in a kind of very fanish level, I did really like that Fautanu was like the first guy to report today, right at 10 a.m. And I think even TJ Watt talked about what his dorm room setup is like. He said there's not even a chair, there's a TV, a bed, and that's about it. So that is the uniqueness where you have a superstar like TJ Watt. He's in a dorm room like, college freshman, just with a pillow and mattress, and that's about it. So that is what makes, I think, Pittsburgh's camp very different than 31 other teams.
I haven't watched the Calvin Austin III ride along to training camp, but I don't know if I've said this on the podcast or maybe I said it with you guys in the Discord channel there. I could listen to Calvin Austin talk all day. He's just a very entertaining interview, I think.
Yeah, very personable. He was on a Memphis radio station last week, and it was a really engaging 20, 25-minute conversation. I spoke with him at the Senior Bowl well before he became a Steeler and had a good conversation with him. So, yeah, I think he's likable. I think he's a really hard worker. I think he blocks his tail off, even though he's he is a small guy. It's easy to see why he's gotten so much praise this offseason.
Okay, what have we missed?
Let's see. NFL top 100. We have 3 Steelers making the list, and a 4th will come with TJ Watt. But Cam Hayward at number 98, Minkah Fitzpatrick number 79, and Patrick Queen 64. Not that it matters too much the order that they're in. I did like to see Hayward still getting recognition, even though he fell a bunch of spots, but still being in the top 100 despite the injury last year. Minkah falling because of the injury last year, and Patrick Queen, his first time on the list. And TJ Watt, I'm sure, will be on there. A question of where he'll be, top 10, top 15. We'll see. But that is the NFL top 100.
Yeah, I don't think anybody else will be in there, will they?
Besides Watt, no.
What about Pickens? Do you think Pickens is
Not
going
at
to
this
make it in
point.
there?
I thought maybe he could get like the 90 to 100 range, him or Porter, but at this point, you're not going to. They're already gone through the 60 through 100. He's not going to be like a top 50 guy.
Okay.
I mean, do you think he'll be? Maybe
I'd like his chances to maybe be in this next group. I don't know.
All right, we will see. I think they announced them daily at noon. I'll be at camp tomorrow, but we'll see if anyone else besides Watt gets added next year. I think if he has a good 2024, I think we'll be on there next year. Brandon Ayuk, speaking of receivers, he's officially holding in. Kind of referenced that earlier. Don't want to spend much time on it, but that's his status. Courtland Sutton, he's a full go. CeeDee Lamb is holding out. CeeDee Lamb's not coming to Pittsburgh, but that's kind of the state of the wide receivers right now.
Looking at and Trent Williams did not report, right? He's holding out for the 49ers there. This is, it's obviously a good problem to have, but they you remember the Steelers several years ago when they had all those players with all the hands out. It's a byproduct of being good, being a good team, and they have. The 49ers have got an interesting rest of the offseason to try to go through here. And I don't think many people were expecting Trent Williams to do what he did in having issues with his contract. But it's not surprising in the same breath either there. So it will be interesting to watch them maneuver through the Ayuk situation and now through the Trent Williams situation here.
It is notable that John Lynch kept the door cracked open for a trade. He was asked, because last year he had Nick Bosa with the holdout, a real long, prolonged contract situation, and Lynch was adamant, no chance that Bosa would get traded. Lynch said that's not the case this year. There's no absolutes. They want to keep Ayuk. Their intention is to keep Ayuk, but they will listen to offers. And so to me, that's kind of putting out to the world, you want to call? I'm not saying we'll do anything, but we'll pick up and listen.
All right, that's our gratuitous nudity or gratuitous Ayuk.
Of the day
for the episode.
Which I'm sure we'll be doing a couple more times throughout the off season, but that's just how things go. All right, Dave. Anything else from day 0 of training camp? I think everyone there mostly healthy overall. To me, seemingly a good way to start things off.
What was the most notable thing, Najee? Outside, I mean, I think there were two. The two notable takeaways are you got 3 players on PUP NFI, and then the other thing was Najee talking to the media. I would call that the two most notable things I think that happened today.
I agree. Nothing else really earth-shattering, but we'll have a lot of news starting tomorrow. All right, Dave, we want to finish up our 90 and 30 series to conclude, to kind of put a bow on the pre-training camp stuff before camp begins. Again, we'll be doing the camp daily shows beginning tomorrow, and still have the podcast Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Although in terms of when we record them, probably more at night. That will change things slightly. But Dave, let's get into the final 90 and 30s. I think we're going to start off here with Jaylen Warren. Spoke about him earlier. Similar role as last year, probably getting 40% of the carries, 45%, getting third down work. Fun player, bowling ball, great energy, great teammate. Should be a good year for him.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about players in this series that are experienced like he is, and still kind of an up and rising guy, there's not much more to kind of add on to that. You just expect another good season from him, and good handful more yards than last season there. He's I tell you, that guy, even late in games that the Steelers are even behind, that guy gives you everything he has.
Oh yeah, I mean, that's his story. He was the no college JUCO guy that went to Utah State, Oklahoma State, undrafted, signing bonus of $12,000. I mean, scratching and clawing and earning everything that he's received. So that's the mentality he has. Dave, in year 2, Darnell Washington, what are you looking for from him?
I want to see the blocking come around a little bit more with him, and I'd like to see him be used a little bit more in the passing game.
Yeah, I agree. I think we talk about the passing game usage, and people hope that increase, and I think it should and it will, especially inside of 20, inside the 5. But his blocking needs improvement. It was not perfect last year. As a down blocker, like with the angles and size and strength and length that he has, he can move people. But as a base blocker, he's got to be better there. He's got to work on his leverage. He's got to work on his snap timing, firing off the ball quicker, a little slow last year. So I think the blocking, while he's viewed as a big body blocking tight end, that's going to be his role. there's work to do as a blocker. He's not a refined, finished product yet.
I agree.
All right, Quez Watkins, one of those many veteran receivers trying to fight for a spot in a role, number 2 spot, speedster with the Eagles, and he signed over this year on a 1-year contract with Pittsburgh. So is it just kind of making big plays downfield? Is that his path to get noticed and to stick?
Yeah, and I would have to imagine he's going to have to figure out a way to get on a special teams unit or two.
Which is not really his background. Right. A little bit of kick returns, and there's going to be a second kick returner back there opposite Patterson. Want to see who that's going to be, but does not really have that resume overall.
Right, I agree. I think it's not unthinkable for him to make this roster, but his, it almost feels like he needs a little bit of help.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at too. But he can make some plays. He can fly. The dude can run. He burned Pittsburgh in a preseason game a couple of years back with what it was like an 80, 90-yard touchdown. So don't be shocked if he runs by coverage once or twice in training camp. All right, Dave, this installment that you did on July 17th was the Watts edition. It was TJ Watt, Deuce Watts, and Ryan Watts. TJ Watt, not much to be said here. Just be healthy, TJ, for week 1, and you'll be good to go.
Yeah, I hope he brought his bubble suit. Because the only thing that can slow down TJ Watt is an injury. I think this guy obviously one of the best in the NFL at what he does. All pro, potential defensive player of the year,
and could be second fastest in NFL history to 100 sacks. So we'll be watching for that once the games start to count. Really, it's a good point about his age. About to turn 30. Will he get some more veteran rest days this year? I think he probably should, and that's fine. You get more reps to Herbig and to Moon. You got some young outside backers trying to fight for time. It's not like Marcus Golden last year where you kind of knew what he could do. I think you probably get a couple extra rest days for TJ Watt this year.
He's talked a couple of times now, I think, about how he's training a little bit different. He's not trying to go max out every time that he gets into the weight room. He's trying to be a lot more smart about it. Mentioned his personal trainer today from, that he's had for several years. So I think he's cognizant that he's older and there's no sense to try to hit your max every time you hit the weight room and all like that. So I think he's smart about it. I think if you're Mike Tomlin, you'd kind of get with him, ahead of training camp and kind of map out, hey, let's give you a couple of days off here.
It's not like you when you're in the weight room, right, Dave? You're squatting and locking out max weight.
Absolutely. Yeah, I haven't done that since I like 14.
Keep up, TJ. You got Dave Bryan to compete with. Deuce Watt's a much tougher path to make the team than TJ Watt, wide receiver, back end of the roster, going to try to survive, advance. He's got a bit of NFL experience, some size. Maybe the special teams value to be unlocked. Can't really comment too much on that, but tough path for Deuce Watts.
It really is a tough path for him. Originally signed by the Green Bay Packers as an undrafted free agent in 2023. They waived him last year. The Steelers signed him to a reserve contract earlier in the offseason. Has played 47 preseason snaps on offense with the Packers in 2023, with most of those coming in the slot, believe it or not. He registered just 1 catch for 9 yards in that playing time. He logged just 6 special team snaps with the Packers last year as well during the preseason, with 0 stats to show for it. That's not going to help his cause either. Long story short, he's fighting to do enough to get on the practice squad.
Yeah, if he can do that, it'll be a good summer for Deuce Watts. And then finally, Ryan Watts, the 6th-round pick, final selection Pittsburgh made in the 2024 NFL Draft. Appears he's going to make the move from corner to safety. Reporting was he was working at safety in spring ball after working as a corner throughout his college career that ended at Texas. And possibly long arms. Could he work as a gunner? He's physical. I think there's some talent there. I want to watch him on special teams. That's probably going to be his way to stick on this roster.
Yeah, and I think he got a fair share on special teams throughout his college career too. You mentioned how long he is. Man, that wingspan on that guy. It might be a while before we talk about a cornerback specifically that when he puts his arms out has a wingspan like that. He showed to be a physical player in the tape that I watched on him. Obviously, his measurables and all throughout the pre-draft process were fine. 9.81 RAS. it's all about the position transition for him, and more importantly with him from training camp and preseason, as you said, man, show up. And I mean, can he be one of those gunners for you? Can he get himself in a position where he's getting a helmet every game? And if he can get him, if he can make the roster and he can do that, and maybe get a snap or two during the season on defense, non-injury related, I think that's a successful season for him.
And then just making that switch to safety. It's different angles. It's obviously different schemes and assignments. You're playing deep half. You're not in man coverage as much. Will he play more free safety, which is a typical transition that corners make, corner to free safety, but he's kind of got a strong safety body type and play style. So I don't know. I don't know exactly how he'll be used, but making that adjustment to safety as a rookie, no less, is going to be a challenge.
Yeah, all I ask is that you kind of be cognizant and note, is he more center field? Is he more down in the box? What are they doing with him? Right.
Or slot, big slot over tight ends. There's probably some capability of that as well. All right, moving on here, Dave, the final couple of names. Julius Welshoff, the undrafted free agent from Charlotte, spent most of his college career at Michigan, is the international exemption player. So when we reference the roster, we say 91. The usual max is 90, the tends to be 90 and 30 series name, but Pittsburgh can have Welshoff as an exempt guy. It does not count against their roster. German-born, very tall. He's lost some weight. He had a really good 3-cone time at his pro day, got hurt last year at Charlotte when he only played 4 games. So probably going to be on the practice squad as the exempt guy.
Yeah, just stay healthy all year, Julius. I mean, that's all you have to do, and you're going to get a paycheck for the whole season.
Yeah, he will. And so an interesting guy, Denzel Martin, the outside linebackers coach, talked him up about his work ethic and desire to get better. So it's a different body type. The dude's like legitimately 6'6", 245 out there. So it's going to be easy to spot him. Hopefully he looks fairly comfortable playing on his feet.
Right.
All right, Rodney Williams, Hot Rod, who you have making the 53. I think he's in a really tight battle with Michael Pruitt. What do you want to see from Hot Rod this year?
I want to see him get it, develop a little bit more as a blocker in whatever situation that might be. End of the line of scrimmage, split zone, moving across and all. I think he has shown effort in there. I thought it was okay in the limited snaps that he was asked to play on offense in that realm. He's gonna. I wonder how many times during training camp he reminds Danny Smith that he saved his butt.
I do it every single day.
Hey, you remember that time? He's an above average special teams player. If he can take that above average special teams player tag and turn it into a very good special teams player, he'll have a spot on his 53-man roster, I think.
Yeah, and can he improve as a blocker? If his blocking can even be adequate, that's probably enough to get the hat in the spot over Pruitt, who's not going to offer anything on special teams and is not going to offer much as a receiver. So I think the blocking for Williams, a former college receiver, is going to be key for him.
If there were just me and you and we were running from a bear, all I would have to worry about is beating you.
And all I have to worry about is beating you.
Which you could probably do.
I think I got you.
Him and Michael Pruitt just, and look, that's no way to approach this thing. Just looking at one guy and say, man, all I got to do is beat this guy. But in essence,
it's kind of true.
It's kind of true, and that bear is Michael Pruitt's age at this point. So beat the bear being Michael Pruitt. I think if he could do that, he might have a roster spot.
That's a really, I actually really like that tagline. Beat the bear.
Leave it to me, right?
Yeah, there you go. All right. Peyton Wilson, he might be the bear. He runs like a bear. I mean, this guy's a super athlete. I'm really excited for him. I know it's a rookie. You never know what you're going to get with those guys, but I think this dude's going to shine in camp.
This guy could end up being, when I ask you, who is your defensive player of the training camp practice? He could be this guy several times.
Certainly.
As I've never noted several times. First note I ever wrote down on paper on him is, man, he can run. And really, when you get into his tape, there's shit and I've said this several times of this year's draft class. Once again, there are a lot of guys to be excited about. I think just totality of tape and athleticism and hearts and smarts and football IQ and all those things rolled up to one. I think he is the one to be the most excited about when it comes to this class. And that's no disrespect to Fautano or any others. It's just when you look at the entire package, this guy ought to hit the ground running starting tomorrow. Literally.
Hey, yeah, literally. He should be able to do that when the Pats come on. Should be exciting as well. Want to see him in backs on backers. The one-on-one coverage drill is going to be, I think, a place where he can look really good. So the knock on him, as everyone knows, was health. He's a long-term health, though, but he's healthy right now. So you're getting third-round pick, first-round talent. Only fell because of the, what's he going to be in 4 or 5 years, but that's not going to matter for the here and now. So just hopefully he stays healthy. Of course, he's been healthy the last 2 years, but has had a bunch of injuries earlier on. Would hate to have a Corey Trice 2.0 where the concern was, okay, the medical and the injury history, it drops him. And then, of course, Trice tears his ACL early in camp last year. So knock on wood with that. But if healthy, if out there, I think Wilson will look really impressive.
All right, next three.
Yeah, we've entered the law firm of Wilson, and Wilson. So we're at Roman Wilson, the other third-round pick the Pittsburgh had. So, I mean, I feel like sometimes I probably lose sight of Wilson in this receiver battle, despite him being this third-round pick. I mean, this guy's an impressive route runner. He's quick twitch. He's got good hands. He's selfless, a willing blocker. There's a lot to learn. He's got to get stronger, beat press coverage, but this guy could probably make some plays, especially in some of those one-on-one type settings.
I mean, a willing blocker. He could stand to be a better from a technique standpoint, but he's willing blocker, good after the catch in college. Obviously played inside and outside at Michigan. Most recently, more kind of inside kind of guy there. Only had 7 drops, I think, during his college career. 9 contested catches. Did not fumble, I do not believe, during his college career. The biggest thing I'll be wanting to learn out of him from your reports and moving forward is how much inside, how much outside, and then when they, whenever they get into kind of the, if at all, how often, I mean, they do the one-on-one drills. How many times are they kind of press type, man type situations where the corner's right up on them?
That's a good question. It probably varies a bit. They're typically tighter coverage because it is, that 1v1 setting, and they want to be able to kind of work releases. You might not always get that press look in games and things like that. So it's pretty physical, pretty combative and competitive in that setting. Yeah.
I mean, he had a lot. I mean, the last couple of years at least, he had a lot of free releases. All right. Mm-hmm. Now you go back in some of his tape. Yeah, he does have some wins on the outside against press and all like that. But I mean, he wasn't asked to do that a lot overall in college. So I think the main thing I'm going to be looking to try to fish information out of you is how is he doing when he's got somebody up on him?
Yeah, that's going to be key. Working his hands, being stronger. I know Zach Gazzani's going to coach him very hard, and I think Wilson is going to embrace that. He came from a Michigan team, your coached hard, professional NFL type environment, so not new to him, I don't think. But I'm sure we'll hear Gazzani getting in his ear quite a bit in training camp.
All right, Russell
Wilson said all there really is to say about him. Only question is kind of how much he'll play in the preseason. I think you want to get this guy some reps in this new offense, new pieces, new OC. I think he'll play things by ear a little bit, but I think Wilson will still see a fair amount of reps.
100 times sacked over the course of the last 2 seasons in total at Denver. Those sack totals really need to decrease in his first season in Pittsburgh. Let's see. He did only have 19 total interceptions last 2 seasons, 42 touchdown passes. I'd like to see that average of 21 go up a little bit with him. Let's talk about 28 touchdowns maybe this season. That adjusted net yards per pass attempt, you're not going to get out of this talking about Russell Wilson without me rolling out that stat with him. During his time with the Broncos, that was just 5.78. That's not going to cut it in Pittsburgh. It's not going to cut it anywhere, I don't think, in the NFL. We've got to see his adjusted net yards per passing attempt stat 6.2 or higher, if not close to 7. That will be a mark of a very good season for Russell Wilson. And that number obviously takes into account sacks, sack yardage, touchdowns, passing yardage, interceptions, attempts, yada, yada. If at the end of the year I mean, look, if you get to the bye week, which is right in the middle of the season this year, and that adjusted net yards per passing attempt stat is under 6. I know that you have to look at the tape and this, that, and the other, but that stat speaks volumes, Alex.
It depends on if the team is winning or not. They won last year, the last 2 years in the regular season, in spite of that, really the last more than 2 years, but it's not going to be a good sign for this team to win a playoff game if that number is
right.
6.1 or 5.9 or something low like that.
And look, I mean, obviously the tape can tell a little bit different story and all this, but those numbers usually
they don't lie that often.
No, they don't. You know, let's got to have it up over 6, like closer to 7 to better. You know, am I expecting him to come out this season or by week and have a number at 7 or greater? No, but things should be set up for him to at least be over 6.2 and maybe even pressing that 7 number.
At the risk of splitting hairs, I'll take 25 touchdowns from Wilson because that would be the same number Pittsburgh has thrown the last 2 years combined, 12 and 13 each of the last 2 seasons. So I'll take 25. Yeah, that on.
Limit them sacks, man, because those sacks play into that number and that sack yardage, you know?
Yeah, and you don't want to be in these third and longs for a run-oriented type of offense. And, who's been sacked 99 times the last 2 years? Wilson's 100. Who's been sacked 99? Justin Fields. So everyone's got to get the ball out quicker. Snap to throw times have to be cut down, I think, fairly significantly, relatively speaking. It's going to be hard to see that in camp, obviously, when the quarterbacks can't get hit. But you can kind of still feel, how often is he holding on to the ball and scrambling around or bailing on pockets. So we'll get a sense of it in camp at least.
All right, next.
All right, Jacoby Windman, the undrafted free agent linebacker from Michigan State. We've talked about him a little buzz on him. Some
as
talent
of late,
there. Yeah, obviously they signed Medikevich, and that's going to help. It's going to close up some opportunities and reps in training camp. With Holcomb shelved for the moment, you get 7 inside linebackers. You typically get, obviously, again, 3 lines of the 2 pairings. So that's 6 guys who's going to be kind of odd man out. They'll rotate in people, I'm sure. Windman kind of looking like the odd man out right now. So maximizing the reps he gets, which might only be, 3-4 practice, is going to be key.
Yeah, my hope is to come out of training camp in the preseason having a little bit of better idea maybe of what his ceiling is, because he did miss those games due to injury and suspension last couple seasons there. Plus he played some on the edge and then moved back to off the ball. I mean, he's a talented kid overall. It's just you don't have a large I don't think you have a solid gauge of what his ceiling is. And I'd like to be able, and look, he's going to have to play on special teams. If he wants to take Tyler Matakevich's spot on this, does he have the best shot maybe of a quote unquote inside linebacker to take his spot?
To take
Matakevich, yeah. If there was one on this depth chart that would have a shot, albeit slim, to take Matakevich's spot, would it be him?
Or would you just call it Mark Robinson? Because they're not going to keep more than 5.
Yeah, but you kind of know what Mark Robinson's ceiling is. It feels like more at this point, and what he is on a special teamer,
Yeah, I mean, I think they'd like you as a special teamer. I mean, if he just gets on the practice squad, Woodman, I mean, that's good. I mean, the Holcomb situation, what if Holcomb's not ready for week 1? What if he's on PUP the whole summer? I mean, I don't know what the timetable is going to be for him. So, I mean, obviously in that situation, you might just keep Matakevich and Robinson, and that's your 5. Maybe Woodman goes to the practice squad. I think at this point, though, just trying to get some reps, survive, look good on special teams, impress Danny Smith, all that kind of stuff.
Look, ideally, best, a good situation for him would be to stay healthy, do enough during the training camp and preseason that you're a slam dunk practice squad player.
Right. He'll be competing with Tyler Murray to try to get some of those reps. So maybe he won't be the odd man out. It might be him, might be Murray. We'll be reporting on that, but they'll probably do some rotation, I'm sure, in team periods. All right, final 2, Dave. Matthew Wright, the kicker, the backup to Chris Boswell. It's a tough spot to be the backup to Boz. Your roster's not going to really is no path unless Boz were to get hurt. But Wright's an accomplished kicker. He's improved his leg strength. I know in his first stint with Pittsburgh, when he came out undrafted from UCF, his leg strength was the issue. His kind of max was 49, 50 yards. He's now, I think, hit like 55, 56 yarders around the NFL. He's trying to put on good tape this summer. to get on a tryout circuit or get sign somewhere. Somebody gets hurt, a kicker struggles. He's probably going to kick somewhere in the NFL this year, just not Pittsburgh again, assuming the boss stays healthy.
Yeah, if we're talking about, we'll make this short. If we're talking about Matthew Wright in week 1 with the Steelers, something has gone wrong.
Yeah, and he's aerospace engineer. That was his whole thing, I think, like Josh Dobbs. So that's his backstory there. He's done NASA-related type stuff. All right, finally, the straggler, since he got signed very late in the process, Tyler Medikevich, just mentioned him with the inside linebacker group, Dave. Special teams with Tyler Medikevich.
Dirty Red. They call him Dirty Red for a reason. There. I
wonder why they call it. Is it because of the dirty hair, like the dirty blonde, dirty red kind of thing?
It just does the dirty work, whatever.
Yeah.
Obviously got the red hair and all like that. Special. I mean, Mike Tomlin summed it up pretty good today. I mean, that guy's going to be a hard out. Plain and simple. He's going to be a hard out because of his play on special teams. A guy that, you can roll him out there on defense. I hope it's a lot of downhill stuff, when it comes to him. Hopefully, assuming Tyler Medikevich makes the 53-man roster, the hope is that the only time you have to see him on defense is late in the game, Steelers blowing somebody else out, mop-up duty.
Right, or maybe some goal line duty, but that's probably even pushing that in terms of you got other guys to do that job. He is going to wear his old number 44. We weren't sure about that at first. Julius Wolshoff was previously wearing it. He's making a last-second switch to 48. So for those of you that bought your Julius Wolshoff 44 jerseys, we apologize. He has changed numbers Medikevich back to 44.
And for those of you that kept your 44 Medikevich jerseys,
bring them back out.
Congratulations. You get extended usage out of them there. Look, I don't want to say that he's an absolute lock, but he's gonna be a tough out.
Yeah, I think so. All right, Dave, congratulations, 90-30, another year in the books.
It was actually 92-30 because of the safety getting cut, Elliott. I had already previewed Elliott before he got cut. Who was it? Jalen.
Yeah.
But 92-30, I had a feeling when I started this thing that I was going to end up like 95-30 or whatnot. And obviously we knew it wouldn't be exactly 90-30 because they have the extra roster spot to work with there. But I'm proud. I did 92 in 30 days, did not miss a day. And I'm even prouder that this might be the first time we got through all 90 and 30 on the podcast too. So kudos to us on that.
We're in training camp form. We're good to go. Passed our conditioning test. All right, Dave. Speaking of which, it is going to be day one of practice tomorrow, 10:30 a.m. Eastern time. So we'll be out there extra early at Saint Vincent College. I'll have my notes and report and camp diary. And of course, we'll recap things in the podcast. Just quickly here, Dave, we'll talk about everything tomorrow, obviously. But what are you looking for to hear about, for me to write about, all that kind of stuff out there on that debut day?
Yes, absolutely.
All right, I got you covered. I'll just write that in my report. They all look good.
Look, packing orders, line groupings, groupings all the way together. I mean, look, I'm not going to put pads on for the next couple of days. I'm looking for pecking orders here. I'm looking for maybe anybody that maybe catches your eye. Obviously every last one of the draft class guys going to be asking you about them. I mean, just I need a starting point. So I'm looking for you to give me a starting point for this team, group wise, pecking order wise. Who was up, who was down, kind of just simple kind of stuff from day one. Injuries, obviously. Hopefully, we're not talking about a lot about that. How's the slot battle going? Who was first? Who's on first? What's on second? Those kind of things there. So low. I don't want to say low expectations because when it comes to you, there's no such thing when it comes to that. But just surface level kind of stuff. Give me a good starting point, Alex.
Yeah, it's getting to know the roster. We weren't there for spring ball, and so it's us kind of really getting boots on the ground to see how things work. And again, as I'll say, and I'll try to remind myself as well, it is day one. They will rotate. Guys will mix and match. This is not set in stone, and it is just a starting point of training camp for Pittsburgh. But yeah, it's hard to really pick out one thing. I want to see offensive tackle. Is Broderick Jones going to flip-flop? Is he going to play just left tackle? Is Dan Moore going to play some right tackle? Is Fautanu working first team? Are they going to get him out of the gate? Is he going to kind of work second team, work his way up? Same at center, Herbig and Frazier. DeMarvin Leal, want to see him. I know it's early in the process, but big year for him. The team has talked him up. It's make or break. The light might come on for him. If he does, fantastic. I hope that it does, but I'll be watching him very carefully. And yeah, just kind of receiver stuff. I mean, slot corner, all the things you mentioned.
Absolutely. All right. I can't wait. And probably within about 24 hours from now, we'll be dropping the first special edition episode of the Terrible Podcast, Pittsburgh Steelers Training Camp 2024. I'm going to have to brush off my intro.
You nailed it. You sound pretty good right there.
There you go. All right. All right.
And they'll be earlier. I mean, because maybe even earlier.
Don't jinx it.
That's also true. Very true. I think they're calling for a slight chance of rain tomorrow, but should be okay overall. But yeah, I think should generally be released earlier because, of course, the practice is earlier. Typically, the first day, and this is still the NFL deems it the ramp-up period. That's why you can't be in pads the first 4 days. You have to take an off day on Monday and then come back on Tuesday for the first padded practice. They're generally a bit shorter. I think even the official schedule calls it a 90-minute session. Looked at my notes last year. I think there were only 3 team periods and they called it a day. So, things will ramp up. It'll be probably a shorter practice, less intense practice. But of course, for us, first time out there, plenty to discuss.
All right. I think we got a lot done within 90 minutes today, right?
I think so too. Any reader emails, or are we kind of good?
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna. I mean, I think we got most of them the other day. I don't think we got any. If we got any, a straggler or two. But we've got some. I mean, you got to get ready to go tomorrow. We got work to do on the site tonight and all. So we'll be answering questions as we go here.
All right, sounds good. So again, be back tomorrow to do the post camp episode. We'll also record the Friday AM episode of the Terrible Podcast, season 15, episode 2. That'll be done Thursday night. Just again, we'll probably do most of those at night in case anything were to break overnight in the morning. Just a heads up there. Anyway, we'll walk you through it all. Get out there at camp tomorrow. I'll be out there. Tim Rice will be out there, team photographer. So we're excited for that as well. And you guys know the drill. Be out there with my camp diary. I got some special things lined up. I got the Norm Macdonald quote of the day. I love Norm Macdonald. Rest in peace. And some short kings. I got a little blurb on there on the shortest Steelers in NFL history. The guy tomorrow, interesting story for not only his football adventures, but his tennis adventures. So we'll talk about that, or at least it'll be included in the end of the diary.
That's a great tease to get us out of here. So with that, I can't wait, as Bart Scott said once. You can follow me on Twitter /X at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate to the cause, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button, upright navigational bar. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com. Hit that ad-free button. Follow the directions that way. So, hope you like a lot of podcasts, people, because we got a lot of them coming here. And as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.